Listening and hearing are two parts of the same whole, but there are differences. So we're going to explore that today on It's Cuppa Time. All right, today I want to talk about listening and hearing, two very important aspects of being a gong, bowl, or bell player. Now, I've been a musician for 50 years, and I can probably hear a lot more sounds than you can because I have a trained ear. Just like a trained athlete who can throw or kick a ball much better than you can ever hope to because of all their years of training. I think it's really important to develop your ear so that you can go deeper and deeper into the subtleties of the sounds you are making. It's important to be able to hear those subtleties. Now, if you talk to like a music producer who makes recordings and works with bands and musicians and that, oftentimes they can hear crazy subtleties that nobody else can. They can hear very minute fluctuations in volume, tuning, and things like that. But they've spent their whole career, working with sound and learning all about it. And that's what's important to their job. So sound, listening and hearing. It's an important thing we do. And sometimes I don't think people listen enough. Now, hearing is just taking in sound. There's sound all around us, and we're hearing it all the time. And the thing about hearing is we often consciously ignore it. If you're thinking like noise outside your window, construction, traffic, things like that, we'll just tune it out. Somebody might come home where you've been for hours and they'll say, how can you work with all that noise going on? And you'll say, what noise? Because your brain has tuned it out. So that's hearing. Hearing is just sort of being bombarded with the world around us and selectively taking it in or even just subconsciously tuning it out. Now, listening is a whole different thing. It's a much more focused thing. It's a conscious thing. We consciously listen to something. Now, a real interesting thing I learned from producing music and talking with other music producers is that most people can only follow maybe one, maybe two sounds at a time. So just think of listening to your favorite recording. If it's a vocal recording, you probably can hear the vocals, sing along with them, and follow the vocals. And the rest of the music is really in the background. And you can't really pick out what's going on there. You can pick out the vocal, but you can't really pick out what's happening behind it. It's just kind of this whole continuum of sound. Now, if your ear's got a little bit of training, you might be able to pick out like maybe the guitar or the keyboard or something in there besides the vocal. Now, somebody with a trained ear might be able to actually listen and differentiate between 4 or 5 instruments. But that takes a lot of training to be able to hear all those things separately. Because our brain is really kind of designed to focus, on one sound at a time. Think of yourself like in a noisy restaurant and there's a conversation. We can focus on the person who's talking and everything else just kind of becomes background. And if you try to listen to all the background conversations, you can pick out one here, maybe the table over here, somebody's talking, and then you can put your focus over on the next table on this side and listen. Maybe somebody behind you says something, you can hear it. But you can't really hear, 3, 4 distinct conversations at once. Our brain isn't designed for that. So that's a difficult thing. Now in listening, like I said, it's sort of a conscious effort. So again, like if we're in the restaurant and we consciously listen to the person over on one side, we can hear what they're saying. People can be talking all around us. It's indistinct, but we can focus in on that one conversation. So we do have that ability to really focus and, pick up certain sounds. And in working with gongs and the bowls and the bells, this is very important because especially the gongs, they're very subtle instruments. Now I can probably make a lot more sounds than most of you. Not just because of the technical ability I've developed over the years, but because I can hear those sounds, and because I can hear them, I can make them and bring them out. A part of it is whether, while I'm making those sounds, you can pick them up or not. So a lot of things are very subtle. Singing bowls, very subtle. A lot of bowls will have numerous partials beyond the fundamental tone or note that the bowl produces. People with a trained ear will be able to hear many more partials. Others might be able to hear, 1 or 2 or something. Beyond that, it becomes a blur. So developing this idea of being able to listen as opposed to just hear is really important. So here's a basic exercise you can do. Take your gong and pick out a mallet or a pair of mallets. Now start very quietly playing. Listen to the sound and try to pick out the subtleties of the sound. Like little rhythmic pulses, little frequencies that are moving in and out, things like that. Very subtle sounds. Do that for a while. Then play a little harder, bring the volume up a little bit. Again, just kind of sit at that place and listen. How is the sound changed? What different sounds or sort of rhythmic pulses are coming out? Then do that again. Get a little harder, a little louder. Listen again. And keep repeating that until you get to a fairly loud volume. Then get a different mallet or pair of mallets and repeat the process. Start quiet, listen, bring it up, bring it up, bring it up. Taking time to listen to the subtleties at each step. And if you have even more mallets, keep repeating that with each type of mallet you have. And as you're doing it, notice the differences in the subtleties between this mallet, that mallet. So what we want to do is develop our ear and be able to actively hear what's going on with our instruments. It's just such an important thing, I think. Then, if you have more than one gong, move on to your second gong. Repeat the whole process again. And this time, you're not only listening for the subtleties between the different mallets on this gong, but also comparing it to those same mallets on the first gong. What are the differences? What different sounds, came out? Harmonics, rhythmic pulses, undertones, overtones, all these different things. And if you do this on a continual basis as an exercise, just like a pianist playing their scales, sitting down every day, playing their scales up and down the piano keyboard. If you do this on a regular basis, you find that your ear will really start to develop and you'll be able to hear a lot more of these subtle sounds and frequencies. So that's just a really important thing to do. And so many people really are hung up on the technique of playing and playing style and things like that. But along with that really goes to listening to what's going on, actively listening in a focused manner, not just hearing things like you're sitting outside in your backyard and you're just hearing the traffic and the birds and your neighbors and things like that. That's just letting sound come in and just kind of float around you. This, again, is very active, focused listening, looking for specific sounds, trying to hear them. So that's the exercise for today. Try that out for a while. Leave a comment after you've practiced it, how it's worked for you or not. And if you really are liking this series here, it's going to be weekly, so hit the subscribe button, and we will see you next week on Cuppa Time.